Sorry, everybody. This is going to be take two for the Republic of Texas because the video cut out right after I said politics of action. So we stopped with this is going to be very short, by the way. This will be a very short edition. Uh, the accomplishments of Houston's government. We've got the setting the boundaries, Americanizing the political hierarchy, going from those municipios to counties and the uh, roles of the alcaldes being taken over by courts and all of that, a new head right system, and a changed national defense system, essentially, with the big thing being the creation of a law enforcement body that would eventually become the Texas Rangers, although not right this particular second. Now, I mentioned the politics of action that's going to be different here. The politics of action, and I just realized now that I've got this picture much, much bigger than it needs to be. There were not formal politics or political parties within Texas at the beginning of the Republic period, or throughout the Republic period for that matter. But factionalizing did actually happen like that. And it was a pretty simple calculus in terms of the factionalizing. It was either pro Houston or anti Houston, meaning pro Sam Houston or anti Sam Houston, not the city of Houston, but pro or anti Sam Houston. And it was pretty well personified in the guy you see on the screen here, Mirabeau Lamar, Sam Houston's vice president. Mirabeau Lamar expressed a lot of dissatisfaction with pretty much everything Sam Houston did during his first term in office as president of the Republic of Texas. Exhibit 1 was a treaty that Sam Houston personally negotiated with the Cherokee in February of 1836 for recognition of their of the Cherokee claims to land in the northeast part of Texas in return for Cherokee neutrality during the War for Independence from Mexico. Lamar recommended that the Senate, the state Senate, the National Senate, reject the treaty and accused Sam Houston of not taking seriously the quote unquote Indian problem in Texas. Lamar also attacked Sam Houston for his lack of foreign policy success. And for him, this was, again, I hate to keep using this phrase. For him, it's very simple. The United States still had not recognized the Republic of Texas, which was, for Mirabeau Lamar, even though he had led the expedition, that was fine by him. He didn't really support annexation by the United States. He opposed all of that. But the bigger issue was that Mexico still did not acknowledge Texas's independence. Mexico still held to this idea that Texas was a breakaway rebellious state. So they're not recognizing any of this either. Finally, Lamar also blamed the financial circumstances on Sam Houston. So he, looked at this ballooning national debt, the lack of sound currency policy, and said it is squarely his fault. So Lamar just puts everything on Sam Houston. And no surprise here, in 1838, Lamar ran for president on his own ticket with surprisingly slight opposition from Sam Houston, and Lamar wins the presidency very easily in 1838. So he's now the president. Now, with all of that attack, you would think that there's going to be a big amount of change coming, and there was a big amount of change coming, but not the type that that Mirabeau Lamar might have liked. Lamar, as president, was far different, particularly in fiscal policy. He sought to, quote, fix the national financial crisis with a $5 million loan. Now, that's great. That's a good idea. An infusion of cash is never a bad idea when you're a nation like the Republic of Texas was. But the problem was where he planned to get the money is unknown. He never had a plan for actually getting the loan. Or if he did, he never shared that plan with anybody. So he doesn't share that plan. And more importantly, he never actually gets the loan. So what he wound up doing in the meantime was printing another $3 million worth of promissory notes, non-interest bearing promissory notes that were backed by literally nothing. It's just, here's a piece of paper that says it's worth $5, and you're just going to have to trust us on this. The only thing that, quote, backed the currency, which is why people attacked Lamar for having an unsound monetary policy, it was backed by, quote, the public honor and public lands. That's it. Nothing else. To no one's surprise, this currency became worthless. And to give you an idea of how worthless this was, because I know you're all sitting there going, how worthless was it? By 1841, $1 of Texas currency equaled about 15 cents in U.S. currency. So it's useless. It is pointless. Lamar did manage to secure a $457,000 loan from a Philadelphia bank that enabled him to build an effective navy and to increase the ranks at the frontier garrisons, which was done, in theory, to protect against the Indian troubles that he was attacking Sam Houston for ignoring. His biggest expenditure, and this is one of those things that he did it, and it was just purely in some people's opinions, it was a waste of money. The biggest expenditure was moving the capital of the Republic of Texas to Austin on the Colorado River from Houston, Texas. The original capital of Texas was Houston, Texas. Moving it to Austin on the Colorado River cost the Republic about $2.5 million. If we adjust that out for inflation, about $61 million. Lamar claimed that the move was to lure people to the West. So he always said this had nothing to do with Sam Houston personally. However, pretty much everybody in the Republic of Texas, including Lamar's allies, saw this as a spite move. So it's kind of hard to argue that he wasn't doing this to stick it to Sam Houston. He also oversaw a bureaucracy that expanded in the Republic of Texas and became inefficient. The other thing that's pretty clear about this, if you've got a massive expansion of the bureaucracy, it means an expansion of expenditures too. And with very little way to pay for this, people are looking at this like this is not a good thing. There was a postal service that was created in the Republic of Texas. The costs under Lamar exploded. And then there was also a failed incursion into New Mexico to exert Texas's claims, the so-called Santa Fe expedition, which we're going to talk about in the next lecture. And finally, even though he had been attacking all of this stuff about failures of diplomatic recognition and all of this, he completely, in his own right, failed to get recognition from European powers, which hindered his ability to do almost everything. Now, this suggests that Lamar's 2 years as presidency were a complete failure, and that would be inaccurate. There were actually some successes under Mirabeau Lamar's administration. He supported something called the Homestead Act of 1839 that protected citizens from land seizures, protected the seizure of their tools and their draft animals for non-payment of debt. If you remember a few minutes ago, or in the first video, I guess now, I told you that Texans were cash poor. So when they owed debts, what the counties started doing was they would just seize their land or their livestock. The Homestead Act of 1839 put a stop to all of that stuff. Lamar's also responsible for passing a new impresario system in 1840 that was modeled on the Mexican colonization program that issued contracts to immigration agents. And in education, Lamar signed bills in 1839 and in 1840 that laid the groundwork for a public education system by setting aside land in each county for primary schools, as well as for the establishment of 2 colleges in the Republic of Texas. Nonetheless, in the election of 1841, the election of 1840, Sam Houston absolutely obliterated. It was 1841. Sam Houston obliterated Mirabeau Lamar and served a second term that was pretty uneventful. The only thing that Houston really accomplished in his second term as president was he undid pretty much everything Lamar had done, with the exception of moving the capital back to Houston. He didn't do that. In December of 1844, Sam Houston's Secretary of State, a guy named Anson Jones, ran for president and won this presidency, but it was rendered pretty well moot by the annexation of Texas by the United States. That happened via a joint resolution passed in March of 1845. So virtually all, quote unquote, of Anson Jones' term in office was dealt with the transition from the Republic of Texas to the state of Texas, which actually wound up happening officially on December 29th, 1845. So Anson Jones, I don't mean to, I don't want to make it sound like I'm belittling it, but Anson Jones really isn't, quote, president of Texas in much more than name only. He's a transitional figure to the state of Texas. Now, as far as Texas demographics go, by the end of 1836, the population of Texas stood at just over 50,000 inhabitants. There were 30,000 Anglos in 1836, and this had increased to 162,500 by 1848. Now, if you're interested, I just mentioned to you that the 30,000 inhabitants was Anglos. The additional 20,000 was spread out pretty well evenly between Native Americans, enslaved people, and people who identified as either Mexicans or Tejanos. So the 30,000 Anglos is by far the biggest, quote unquote, group in Texas, but there are other groups in Texas, obviously, in 1836. By 1845, it's 162,500 residents in the in the Republic of Texas. The overwhelming majority of that 162,500 people lived in the eastern part of Texas. Head rights and the new impresario system by Lamar are the basic factors in explaining the growth. Easy land, lots of expansion into Texas. Although there is something that I don't have on the screen here, I do want to mention one other thing that served as a push factor. Okay, the head right system and the impresario system were what we call pull factors. They brought people in to Texas, but there was also an economic crisis in the United States called the Panic of 1837 that was a push factor. It pushed people from the United States to elsewhere. Okay. Because there was this massive explosion in debtors' prisons in the United States. So a lot of people who were under threat of debtors' prison wound up running to Texas because it's a respite. There were also in Texas approximately 14,500 Native Americans who were not counted in the numbers above. Okay, so there's still a lot of Native Americans. There were a few Karankawa that remained in Texas. However, Mirabeau Lamar had already initiated a plan to expel Native Americans, and the Karankawa and Caddo suffered tremendously courtesy of this plan and retreated into Oklahoma simply as a matter of survival. Sam Houston's re-election as president saw some softening of relations between the Republic of Texas and Native Americans, but not really enough to revitalize those relations. The newest and biggest group, though, in the Republic of Texas were the Cherokee, who had made a lot of inroads dating back to the 1820s. Sam Houston had negotiated with them during the War for Texas's independence because there was a pretty meaningful negotiation on the part of Mexico that made a lot of people believe that the Cherokee were on the verge of joining Mexico's side in that rebellion. However, despite Sam Houston's negotiations, the Texas Senate and Congress rejected the treaty. The Cherokee leader, a guy who was known variously by Duwally or Duwally John Bowles, had expected that there would be approval of all of this stuff. This became a huge disappointment when Texas rejected Sam Houston's treaty. When Lamar became president of Texas, he relied on his understanding of, quote, the Cherokee problem from his days in Georgia, and made it clear that the Cherokee would not be welcome in Texas no matter what Sam Houston told them. Duwally continued to try to persuade Lamar, but ultimately Duwally wound up choosing resistance over negotiation. At a battle called the Battle of Neches, two volunteer companies of soldiers supported by the Army of the Republic of Texas defeated the Cherokee, leading to the Cherokee departure to Oklahoma almost immediately after. So it was kind of this movement, this issue of the Cherokee in Texas is almost a subchapter of the Trail of Tears. Often we talk about the Trail of Tears being this movement of the Cherokee from the parts of the East and moving into Oklahoma. But there was this one little group that took a little detour into Texas before ultimately getting into Oklahoma. There was also still encroachment from the Plains Indians, something Texans had still not resolved and would not resolve during the Republic years. There were all sorts of fights with the Comanche, but that is stuff under the United States, under Texas in the United States. So we will talk about that in a later class. So that'll be the end of this. When we come back, we'll be talking about the annexation of Texas and the United States' war with Mexico as a result of that annexation.